Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. We Brits like to think of ourselves as a hard-working nation of ambitious, industrious grafters. Rain or shine, usually the former, of course, we pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and we get the job done. But lately, and this has been going on for a few years, an infectious disease has rippled through our workforce. Not COVID, I would call it Workshy Wastrel disease, and apparently highly contagious. Firstly, we've been walloped by endless strikes and walkouts all year, and they're the workers who are still working. Hundreds of thousands of people just gave up during COVID and never went back. Many more are still glued to their kitchen tables, working from home. Well, 3 years on from the pandemic, a whopping 44% of workers still spend at least part of the week at home. Half of the civil service and machinery of the government itself no longer bothers going to the office. In some government departments, 71% of staff are running the country from their sofas, more concerned with the capacity of their fridge than the bus. And Dave Penman, the union boss charged with whipping them into shape, responded by, well, whining about being called names.
Now, having been told that you're lazy, woke, inefficient, Remainer, activist, snowflake, you're also now apparently a Machiavellian genius, able to unseat ministers and undermine the settled will of government. I don't know about you, conference, but I've had enough of this. At some point, we have to say enough is enough.
Would have been a full audience if they'd all come into work. Well, today the Home Secretary Suella Braverman, in her latest attention-seeking broadside, said that Brits are forgetting how to work for ourselves and we need homegrown fruit pickers and lorry drivers to control immigration. And to my astonishment, I found myself nodding with Miss Braverman for the first time, possibly ever. On this, she may well have a good point. Well, now Labour's Sir Keir Starmer, who might also be the next Prime Minister, says he'll enshrine in law the right to work from home and ban bosses, I love this bit, from sending emails and texts outside of working hours. I keep reading that jobs are under threat from the galloping rise of artificial intelligence, amongst many other things. But I also read that the fastest growing type of small business in the US is content creator. And that 50 million people worldwide now say their occupation is influencer. Well, that means they photograph their avocados for a living and pay the bills by not paying the bills and living with their parents until they're 45. Well, the good news is there is a cure for Workshy Wastrel disease, and Dr. Morgan's prescription is this. Put down the baguettes, rediscover the lost art of wearing trousers, and get your lazy, snivelling backsides back to work. Well, on that tender, inclusive note, I'm joined by the General Secretary of the FDA Union, Dave Penman, the businessman and founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins, and TalkTV political editor, Kate McCann. And in case you're wondering why the backdrop is not our normal, glowing, colourful graphic screens, we've got what's called a technical hitch in the business. So there's a kind of funereal. It looks so bad, it almost looks like GB News. I can only apologise to my viewers for this temporary hitch, which hopefully we will resolve, but it sort of adds the right kind of sombreness, I think, to this debate. So, all right, Dave Penman. Here's my problem with what you said. What if one of your workers just happens to be a lazy, woke, inefficient Remainer snowflake?
Well, it's not been my experience of that.
But what if they are? Serious question.
Well, then, like any business or any industry, you would deal with people who are not performing well. We have no problem with that in dealing with performance. The problem is ministers are using this as an issue just to kind of bash the civil service. They're not basing it on any facts around whether people who work in hybrid environments, where sometimes at home and sometimes at work, are any less productive or more productive. They're just doing it to kind of trot out an attack on the civil service.
Why are so many civil servants just stuck at home?
Well, it's not just civil servants. It's
no, I know that, but why are so many of your workers working from home?
So, because, I mean, some people were doing it before the pandemic. The pandemic, I think, in many industries accelerated that move. If you look before the pandemic, actually about 17% of the private sector were working at some point at home. That's now...
But this can't be right for a country trying to compete on the global stage with China, America and India. I mean, if our work ethic is basically get up, go to your sofa, watch a bit of daytime telly, which is actually quite riveting at the moment. If it's that, and then you do a bit of work and you con your bosses, you're doing a full shift, I mean,
If it was that, you'd be right, but it's not that. And also,
How do you know what they're doing?
Because they're producing, if not the same, then more. They're working more hours because they're not commuting anymore. It works for them, it works for employers. Why would private sector organisations, when it's the bottom line, one of the biggest sectors where this is working is the finance sector. Now, you're telling me those big banks and international finances houses don't care about the bottom line.
All right.
Yet their workers, in many cases, in bigger proportions, working...
OK, I'm going to come...